seated and eager to talk, share their ideas. So please come also closer. We are not in the classroom, it's not a school, school audience. Nobody's going to put exams or tests or whatever. I remember in the school, we were always going to the back, trying to hide from the teacher. So anyway, welcome again to the second panel in this series of discussions organized by GLOBSEC in cooperation with the Ministry of Economy of Slovakia and with the representation of Slovakia here in Dubai at the World Expo. My name is Vasil Hudák, I'm Vice Chairman of GLOBSEC, and happy to have this wonderful, very powerful panel which will focus on how can batteries power sustainable development. And as was already mentioned before in the first panel, we are also we are streaming this discussion, so we'll have not only people who are seated here in Dubai and at Slovak Pavilion, but we have also people who are online watching us over the world. And we are also using Slido, so those who are ready and interested to ask questions, please use slido.com to ask questions wherever you are and whatever questions you may have, ideally questions which are related to the subject of the panel. So how can batteries power sustainable development? And I would like to look at the issue of batteries from two perspectives. One is batteries for electromobility. We know that future transport is all the important issues related to environment, decreasing the CO2 footprint, etc. Without batteries and hydrogen, because I know that hydrogen is important for our minister. I'm sure he will talk about this, that this clean transport is impossible without batteries. So how we can use batteries for cleaner transport is one issue, and then the second one is obviously how we can have clean energy through renewable sources of energy connected or facilitated by energy storage. Because clean energy and renewables are very nice, but they are very intermittent, creating impact on energy grids, and batteries are one of the ways how to balance grids and how to make such renewables sustainable. So I would like to focus on those two aspects of battery utilization, and we'll go straight to Maroš Šefčovič, who is Vice President of the European Commission, Commissioner from Slovakia. Huge experience, obviously, in European affairs, and now in charge of interinstitutional relations and foresight. So looking into the future, looking into what is waiting for Europe, but also for the world. So, and of course, if I may call it a godfather of battery industry in Europe, as somebody who actually started the European Battery Alliance some years ago, I think 5 or 6 years ago. So, Maroš, maybe a question to you, as you were the one who actually, with your foresight already at that time, 6 years ago, when you started the European Battery Alliance, and where Europe was this 6 years ago, when basically we were Europeans, basically nobody in the battery industry. And how do you see Europe now, and what do you think are the main challenges that we have in front of us in this battery space?
Thank you very much. First of all, I really would like to appreciate the topic, the kind invitation, and I think that I hope the microphone is working. Is it? Is it? That's good. I think that the theme which we are going to discuss today, it's very much, I would say, extremely topical, not only for Slovak Pavilion. I visited quite a few of them, and sustainability, climate change, how to do better with our carbon footprint is, I think, definitely one of the top priorities in all pavilions visited. And indeed, as Vasil has said, in 2017, when I came up with the idea of creating the European Battery Alliance, it was, at least for me at the time, quite clear that we cannot treat the energy storage, the batteries, as a mere commodity. That if it comes, for example, for such an important industry like automotive sector in Europe, that it's difficult to preserve our excellence, and we are very proud of the European cars. If 50 or 60% of the value, which is represented by batteries and software, the cars would be coming from somewhere else, very often from very far with a very high carbon footprint. And therefore, also, I mean, it was a bit of a foresight in what we need under the umbrella of the European Open Strategic Autonomy. There are simply products, commodities, where we need to be really much more self-sufficient than we did in 2017. So at that time, indeed, we've been nowhere on the global map of battery supplies for a lot of CEOs in the car industry. As I said, battery has been a commodity, and I have to say that here we clearly demonstrated that if Europe is united and if we push in one direction, we can accomplish a lot within very, very short period of time. And I believe what we accomplish in batteries, we can do for hydrogen, we can do for artificial intelligence, or for all other technologies of the future. So what we did was that we decided to work as closely as possible with industry. So European Battery Alliance is absolutely non-bureaucratic, it's industry-led. We've been listening to major players around the table, how we should structure our work, and they told us the best would be to kind of split the battery production cycle into different clusters, from raw materials through so-called active materials, cathode anodes, battery cells, battery packs, down to the software development, reuse, and recycling. And we've been working along all these clusters, and to come to the current situation. Today, nobody disputes that we are clearly #1 destination for investment into the batteries. So we are investing in Europe 3.5 times more money than China invests in its battery sector. Last year, we became #1 in placement of the electric vehicles on the European market, more than 1 million of vehicles, which is more than the placements of the EVs in China. And just as anecdotal evidence, I would mention that in the United States, I think for the same period, it was 300,000. This year, I think in the first 9 months, already 800,000 electric vehicles was sold. So I think you see that there is kind of leaping development in the number of the EVs placed on the new market, and it of course comes with a different variety, with the new models and the improved quality and efficiency of this electric vehicles. So over the last 2 years, the overall investment into the battery sector was more than 60 billion euros per year. This is really a huge, huge number, and the result of that is that we have currently 70 projects across the whole value chain. We have more or less 15 gigafactories in making, and we expect that by 2025 the European industry will manufacture enough batteries for 6 to 8 million cars. So it means that we will be more than able to supply our automotive sector. I think we'll be ready to supply the outside world, and that we will capture most of the market which is now being created, which would represent 250 billion euros a year as of 2025. So this is where we are within a very short period of time. Challenges of the future, and here I will stop because it will be, I'm sure, very interesting to listen to my colleagues on the panel. The challenge #1, workforce. We need reskill, upskill by 2025. We need 800,000 people with proper skills for the sector: mechanical engineers, chemical engineers, software developers, and so on. And we need sustainable access to the raw materials, which is of course a challenge not only for battery sector, but for all future-oriented technologies: chips, drones, aerospace, windmill. You need magnets, you need graphite, you need cobalt, you need lithium, and so on and so forth. And I think that's a huge strategic task for the EU.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maros. I think it was very, very clear and very impressive progress since where we were as Europe in 2017, as you mentioned, when the European Battery Alliance was created, and where we are now. And I think this is very important for Europe and the position of Europe in the global competition. Now let me switch to the next panelist. This is Richard Sulik, who is Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy of the Slovak Republic. Quite a challenge these days in Slovakia, because your ministry obviously is dealing not only with the e-mobility issues, but also issues of energy, and especially the increases of prices of energy were one of the hot topics, and not only in Slovakia, obviously it's in other countries as well of Europe, but something to deal with, and obviously also very ambitious plans how to bring more renewables into Slovakia, but also what is the impact on prices and on the stability of electric system. So maybe on both fronts in terms of e-mobility and how to preserve Slovakia as one of the hubs of mobility and car production in Europe, but also on the energy front. How do you see it from your position as a minister?
Thank you for the floor, Vasil, and thank you for the invitation. My newest experience is that when energy prices are going down or decreasing, so the market is responsible. When the energy prices are increasing, Minister of Economy, not Minister of Economy is responsible. But yes, it's a very unlucky, unhappy situation. We have to do a lot to make sure that at least households will have stable prices for energy, and industry has to, okay, the prices are increasing, but more important than the prices is to have the quantities, to have what they need, and I think so bad is the situation in Slovakia not. Also, I know countries which are in a worse situation, like Slovakia, for example. We have enough gas and we are producing enough electricity. So it's the general remark, and please now let me come to the batteries. First of all, I would like to, because I see also some problems about which I will speak. So let me first of all say that it's not, the question is not electric or hydrogen. If you want to have a hydrogen car, you will also need batteries. Perhaps a little bit smaller, but you will need batteries. So I am supporting all this development, and it's really a very impressive what happened in last years, and also thanks to Barbara Šefčovič. I am supporting this, but my 2-3 important and not really good answered questions are: first, will we have enough materials between, so it's cobalt, lithium, and also all other materials, because Europe is not rich enough on these materials. We have to import them. So, and if the world will demand these materials for batteries, so we will come to a competitive fight, and this will increase the prices. This is the first problem. Second one is, what will we do with batteries which are old, which are no more usable? What will happen with them? And the third one is, how is the footprint on CO2? So these are, I think, very important questions, and the answers are not really good. They are okay, perhaps some answers are better, some worse, but the really good answers not. And so, okay, this is the first issue, and second one is, we will need much more electricity, because if we will have huge amount of batteries, we will need to charge them. Okay, how we will get enough electricity? Because Europe as a continent has not enough sun, and if we have wind, okay, but not everywhere. So this is a very important question, and I think it will be really necessary to produce electricity also by nuclear plants. Sun and wind will be, I'm afraid this will be not enough. Okay, if we have batteries, we can charge them when the sun is shining and not in the night. I understand this. But despite of this, we will need much more electricity, and we will have to produce much more electricity. And then, yes, it's a very nice future, and we have to support this future. We will take our energy needs. We will be covered by electricity coming from batteries. This is okay, but we have to do a lot of. We are only on beginning of a development, and So this is my general view on this issue, and especially Slovakia. What can do Slovakia? So we are already supporting infrastructure, for example, to charge the cars, and also we are preparing for a gigafactory which could produce. We are preparing area in south of Košice, Bahaliki. I know you are from
East Slovakia.
Yeah, so you know
close to my home.
you know what is Bahaliki because it sounds like Janošik. But Bahaliki could be in future the most important production site for batteries. The area is really huge, and this is one small step which can Slovakia bring to the European efforts to become a really continent which is running on electricity.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Minister. And you brought several interesting questions, including where do we get enough resources or raw materials for the production of batteries, and
what will happen with the old ones?
And what happens with the old ones? That's what I call the C2C or cradle to cradle value chain, from the production of resources and mining through the battery development, production to recycling of the batteries. And all this has to be somehow interconnected, and the circle has to be closed. What I see also from the perspective of Inobat, which is a Slovak company engaged in battery production, is that more and more companies, global companies engaged in mining, such as Glencore, Rio Tinto, are investing into battery producers. So Glencore recently invested in British Volt. Rio Tinto just announced that they will actually invest into Inobat Auto as well. So these are, I think, important issues which are changing the whole structure of the economy globally, because there is much more interconnection now between battery producers, raw materials producers, car industries, etc. But let's move to the next speaker, and this is Mr. Markus Kaune, Chairman of the Board of Directors and CEO of ZSE and VSE. To translate, these are Western Slovak and Eastern Slovak electricity distribution companies. It's part of the E.ON group, and Markus has huge experience in the energy sector, mostly from his positions at E.ON. Obviously, both ZSE and VSE are important players in Slovakia, in the Slovak electricity market. I think some interesting questions are already asked by the minister. How do we get more electricity for what our needs for the battery industry and for electromobility in the future? But also I know that you will have interesting plans for utilization of batteries, both for the storage, for the balancing of the grid and flexibility, but as well as for charging stations and developments which are needed for mobility in Slovakia and in the region itself. So maybe if you could say a little more on how your companies are engaged in this context.
Yeah, that is switched off.
It just requires. Now it should be okay.
It takes a second, Michael. It doesn't matter.
So that should work.
We need some German technology to make it work.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me here and giving me the opportunity to join the discussion. Although I'm clearly not here being a representative of an energy or battery production, I appreciate very much the efforts, Mr. Šefčovič, you have initiated in the European Union to bring that production topic back to Europe. I mean, let's be honest, it was almost done, and now it's going to be revitalized. And I think that's absolutely essential for an industrialized continent like Europe, like the European Union as a community. What is our role? Well, in the future and also in the present, predominantly I see us as, in the IT scenery, you would say, heavy users of batteries. They become more and more important and will play a pivotal role in the future when we regard the complete energy transition, which we partly embarked to and will further expedite over the next years. If Europe wants to achieve the climate goals, which it has itself, then it's inevitable that we definitely need far more CO2-free generation versus the status today. That can come from nuclear, and the other source is, of course, renewables, sun, wind, to a lesser extent hydro and geothermal. And these renewables, as Vasil said in the beginning, have one thing in common. Yeah, they are intermittent. They are intermittent. That's the one thing, and the other thing, their production is far more decentralized than we know to use it from the old kind of traditional energy system. That brings enormous challenges for the grids, particularly for the distribution grids, which we are running, as most of these renewable energy sources are connected to the distribution grids. And to cope with this intermittency, we will in the future have an increasing demand of batteries for a stable grid operation to cope with this intermittency. That is the pure grid part. On top of that, we are not only a grid company, we are also a supply company. Batteries will become increasingly important to provide flexibility. Otherwise, you need to run a system which is always oriented at the absolute peak demand, which is clearly economically totally ineffective. Batteries provide flexibility. With that flexibility, we will be able to utilize much more efficient the energy produced than as if it was all directed to a peak layout. And the third element where we are playing a role, we provide infrastructure. We provide the infrastructure for other battery users, if I may continue to use that term, and that's predominantly, of course, for the mobility sector, for the cars. I cannot answer all the questions Minister Zulik has raised here, and I think they are all justified. Just two thoughts. I think electric e-mobility must be something where a lot of people, a lot of production companies believe in, because one after the other big automotive producer has announced a stop date to produce combustion engine cars. So obviously, and I'm not an expert in that, I just constitute that, there seems to be a future big role of battery electric vehicles. I also believe, Vasil, you mentioned that very much in the thought and in the ideas of circular economy. I think all these batteries which are put in the cars do not have only a once lifetime. They can be recycled, they can be decomposed, and they can be reused as either new batteries for cars or in other battery forms. We see our role, of course, here as providing the infrastructure for this mobility transition. CEST in Slovakia is the market leader when it comes to charging stations. I really have to say also thanks to the support we got from the European Union, because that is at the moment a business where we simply earn not a single cent. Nothing. Without subsidies, it would be completely impossible to set up a charging infrastructure. But nevertheless, we are doing that because we believe in the future business case. Once we have a breakthrough with battery electric vehicles, and that will come sooner or later, I'm pretty convinced on that. And I also think it's an and, hydrogen and battery electric vehicles for both kind of fuels will be enough role and enough space in the future, and also enough need, honestly. But we believe in that battery electric vehicle future, especially for passenger cars, and for that we will provide the infrastructure. We have progressed in this already considerably today. We will continue to do that. I can only tell you, if you are today living in Slovakia, and if you are driving a battery electric vehicle, and I'm doing that myself, I'm really an enthusiast of that. That country is a paradise for you. It's a paradise. Per one electric vehicle or one charging station, 2.5 electric vehicles. So you will never have a problem to find free charging station right now. Just Norway, by comparison, similar size in terms of population, 70 electric vehicles per one charging station. The density is far higher already there. So I think there's a lot of room for upscaling of battery electric vehicles in Slovakia, which is, I mean, per capita, Europe's largest automotive production country. Not to forget about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Markus. And great to have specific examples how actually batteries are already utilized or part of the plans for the development in Slovakia. And I would like to move to Marian Smik, who is chairman of the Slovak Battery Alliance. So this is, I would say, a birth child of the European Battery Alliance, something which was translated into Slovakia, a wonderful association of different companies and research institutes in Slovakia to move the battery idea and vision forward. But we also personally engaged in different battery-related projects. So maybe you could tell us more about SBA, but also about how you see the issues related to the battery development, battery industry development in Slovakia.
Okay, thank you for invitation. Robert mentioned that also the people from village can bring also the innovation. So I'm from the small village, so I will try. So any few words about the Slovak Battery Alliance. We are the platform for cooperation, for communication between private sector, public sector, innovators, financial institutions, and we are supporting really whole value change from mining through cells, battery system, and recycling and second life. We are part of European Battery Alliance, and the second, what is also important, we are the part of European Association of Energy Storage. And 2 years ago I was in Brussels and I got a lot of questions if we have the batteries in legislation, how many pilot projects do you have, and how many real installation. And my answer was just one. We have repump power station Čierny, nothing more. There was the people from Germany, from France, from Netherlands, and everybody had good examples, and we have nothing. So I'm really happy that also yesterday, today's big discussion about the batteries and is on the place. And I think within these 2 years, I will maybe say a few sentences about the real projects or processes. The first, thank you to Ministry and to everybody who change or trying to change the energy law 251. And now it's battery. It's like what is the battery? How to connect to the grid, and we have the flexibility. We have the possibility to be the battery as the part of flexibility, because for example, the project of ZSE is impossible to realize without legislation. And batteries could be also the part of aggregators. And I think this is good news for let's say for everybody. And with regard to the concrete project, we have the Innobat project. It's a project of pilot line for production of the batteries, new modern batteries. Then the project of LCA and Slovak Association, Slovak Academy of Science has the project of National Battery Center. Yesterday, today we discussed about the IPCI projects. It's really important. We will have, I think, the added value in Slovakia with regards to the batteries. And yeah, this is the concrete project. What we are doing in our association, we are focused on electromobility and energy storage, maybe any numbers, and also hydrogen, because I think I was in Tale on the conference and everybody maybe expected that we will fight with Jan Weiterschutz, is the head of the Hydrogen Association, and we say no, we are complementary to this. And with regards to the numbers, okay, the barriers is with regards to electromobility is the price of the electric car. But in 2025, the price will be equal to the price of combustion engine car. so it will be not barrier. And we are talking about the recycling and second life of batteries. Now in cars, on the roads of electric cars, there is, I think, 2 million cars, there is 200 gigawatt hours of battery inside. And within 10 years, we will have these batteries already used. The state of the charge, these batteries will be below the 80%. And okay, what we will do with these batteries? We can take it and put to the second life, like to the energy storage, and we can make the second life. We can make the second life energy storage, and maybe this is the way. Of course, at any moment, also these batteries will not be efficient, and we can take these batteries and recycle and to take the lithium or cobalt or other necessary raw materials, and we are in the circular economy. And with regards to energy storage, I have two numbers. In 2018 was or 15 was just 0.6 gigawatt hours of energy storage. Now we have in Europe more than 8 gigawatt hours. If we compare to Slovakia, if it's in gigawatt, not gigawatt hours, it's more than installed capacity of the Slovakia. And there are many applications, but they are not commercial. But the Bloomberg said, okay, we have many applications, but which one will be the best one? And the installation, we can divide it in two parts, in front of meter and behind the meter. And I think if we would like to penetrate more renewable sources, it will do space for TCO and DCO operators to install energy storage in front of meter. And I think this is the very important part of energy storage.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marian. And I think it's great that there is this public-private partnership platform through the Slovak Battery Alliance for discussing these issues. And also, as you mentioned, the new energy law is going to regulate the whole battery business, which I think is very important. Now let's, and thank you for keeping your introductory remarks down to 5-7 minutes. So we have around 50 minutes for discussion. Which is excellent because most of the panels have this problem that it's a monologue by panelists, but not much interaction. So we have now time for discussions and questions. I already received several questions through Slido, and they actually relate to all of you. So I will start with Maro Šefčovič. There is a question which actually links to the question which came from also from the minister. And this is basically, as an EU leader responsible for foresight, how do you see the future sources of electricity in Europe, given the fact that the fossil and nuclear sources of energy are being stopped? And there are obvious limitations on renewables.
Thank you very much for this question and also for very good interventions from the colleagues on the panel. And I think that I would definitely agree with the Deputy Prime Minister and other speakers that to get us to the climate neutrality by 2050, we indeed need all available technologies. And we need to just explore all the potential these new technologies will bring in. And of course, the questions which the Minister presented are very much on the mind of all stakeholders in this discussion, and it's very much connected to the question which came from Slido. So first, indeed, we would need more electricity. On top of it, we would need more cleaner electricity. And if you look for all the projection of what will be the future electricity mix, so I think that we will see that the proportion of renewables will grow. Yesterday, I think it was here, I was speaking that for the first time we produce more electricity from renewables than from fossil fuels. I think it's around 34-35%, and fossil started to lag behind by 1 or 2 percentage points, and I think this difference will just grow over the years. At the same time, to answer the second part of the question, in all forecasts and foresights I have seen, also by 2050 there was still
a very significant proportion. I think all the forecasters agree it will be around 15% of the nuclear energy, which will be in the mix. And I think that also current discussion about the energy pricing, about the development of the new technologies like hydrogen, also clearly shows that in this area we would need certain lead time. Again, when you look to the industry, they are telling you that for, let's say, mass production of electricity from the hydrogen sources, we need somewhere between 10 to 20 years to really have it on such a massive scale that we can see it as a new source of energy. So this is, I think, also framing a little bit what we mean under the transitionality of gas, because gas is much better than coal, 50% less carbon intensive, and therefore our thinking in the European Commission is very much currently focused on so-called taxonomy. It's a very technocratic term, but more or less what is, I would say, the use of the nuclear, what would be the use of the transnational gas in this mix, and I think we have to factor in all these questions I mentioned. The issue of raw materials is a very valid one, and of course we would need more of them. Therefore we are prospecting what we have in Europe, and we have quite a lot. For example, if it comes to the lithium, there I think if you would explore this 4 potential extraction sites within the European Union, we could cover up like 60-70% of our needs already by 2025. There are huge resources and high quality resources in Serbia. I also had a very interesting meeting with the Premier of Greenland just a couple of days ago in Denmark. We have very friendly relations with Ukraine. There is a huge sources of graphite, but also titanium and other very key raw materials. So what we need is to really develop the approach which would answer also very valid question raised by the minister about carbon footprint, about sustainability, what kind of technologies did we use, what kind of energy we used for extracting of the mines, how friendly we've been to the environment, because without good answers to these questions, we will not have public acceptance for these mining projects, be it in the EU, be it in Serbia, or be it in Ukraine. The people just want to have a guarantee that if we do the mining, we are not destroying landscape, we are not going to endanger the people living in the community, and we will be very, very careful about the overall environmental footprint of our tasks. And of course, the communities who are living there would have to benefit from that, and that we will give them the guarantee that once the mining is done, we would restore the landscape. I think there are key ingredients of the OECD sustainable mining approach, which we want to enshrine in kind of charter of sustainable mining, because I think this would be key for success in the future. And last point on infrastructure, I think it was very important what was mentioned here. According to our estimate, what you need is at least one charging station per 10 vehicles. Currently in Europe, mostly in the Western Europe, we have 1 to 7, but I think we need to accelerate the rollout of this charging infrastructure, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, because currently it's very comfortable, because we have not so many electric vehicles in the Central and Eastern Europe, but of course once the numbers will pick up, I think the infrastructure definitely would have to match this growth. And as I would say, teaser for the future, the last thing I would mention is that if you listen to the volumes of the electricity which will be stored in electric vehicles, idling somewhere in the garage or in the parking lot, we definitely want to use the stored energy for balancing, for developing so-called vehicle-to-grid software, so we can use these batteries for energy storage, and it would help us to also reduce overall carbon footprint. Last thing, what would be very important is regulatory approach. We are currently, hopefully, in a last stage of the legislative process, so it means that member states and parliament are debating a new battery regulation. What it means in practice is that each battery would have digital passport, which will be publicly available on websites, but it will be very clear where you get the raw materials from, that they've been sustainably mined, what was the carbon footprint of the battery, what is the warranty of the battery producer for reuse and recycling. So once you buy the battery, you know the whole story around the battery and about the carbon footprint of the car, and the potential for recycling, or what is called by experts urban mining, is enormous. We are best in the world in processing electronic waste in Europe, but we are processing only 20% of it. And because we still do not have refined the industrial approach to recycling, so from all this processed waste, we can extract only 1% of the precious metals which is in this electronic waste. So what we need is to research, innovate, to develop the industrial approach to recycling, so we can actually get from the batteries all the precious metals which we put there and reuse it for the next production. So it's a very comprehensive and complex task, and therefore what is important is to progress across the whole value chain, because we need each technology and each cluster to bring us innovations and new approaches. Thank you, Azam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
Maybe the solution could be with regards to the question if we have enough electricity for new EV cars. I was the trader with electricity for 20 years, and I see that the first let's use the off-peak hours. It means starting from 8 till 8 in the or 6 in the morning. First, the price is really lower than the 2 peak hours, and Slovakia and also in European countries, they have real space in 1000 megawatts. So I think it's the difference between peak and off-peak hours is 2,000 or 3,000 megawatts. So we can use it. We have the free, and I think that this power station will be happy that okay, you will take the electricity also in off-peak hours. So it's one of the solution.
Thank you, I fully agree. And I think there are some interesting companies, including here, present at the Expo and from Slovakia, are also already utilizing by technology this off-peak opportunities. Minister, please.
I'm afraid I will become the devil's advocate, but let me please some remarks to Maros Šefčovič. Yes, I also know the part of renewable energy is growing and also the quantity, but much more faster will grow the total consumption of electricity, especially electricity. Perhaps in Slovakia, perhaps it will be, today we have 25 terawatt hours per year. I think we will need 60, 70 if all cars or a big part of all cars will be powered by electricity. We will need much more, and in that case I am not sure if we can cover by renewables this increasing amount. This is first. And second, I understand this idea with batteries. Okay, if the sun is shining, we can store the electricity which we need, which we don't need. Okay, but despite of this, I think we will need also a strong base load. And this the question is, where should this come from? And now the example Germany. They are stopping their nuclear plants. They are running last 6. End of this year will stop 3. End of next year they have nothing. We have to stop. We must stop the coal plants. Okay. We have problems with gas from Russia, and also this bad feeling to be too dependent on Russia. So we don't want this gas for really long time. So, and at the same time, you dramatically increase the electricity, the consumption of electricity. It's so. I think we should think much more about this numbers, about the amounts, if this will match in next years, because you tell Mr. Šefčovič, okay, we have to develop some new approaches and new developments, new innovative solutions, and so far, but this takes a lot of time. And at the same time, some car producers are saying, okay, we will stop in next 8 years. We will no more produce. We will produce only electricity cars, and they will do it. They will do it. This is a risico. And the second issue is, I think some raw materials you can find also in Slovakia. I don't know what, but I think you can find something. But I cannot imagine that we will mine it, that we can mine it, because we have legislation, we have air, environmental impact assessment, and we have the people. They won't have electricity cars, they won't have electricity and e-mobility, and then they want it, but they don't want that in their neighborhood somebody will mine, I don't know what, cobalt. Yeah? They are stopping. We have. It's a part of a strong democracy is that people are, if they put them together, they are really strong, and they are strong enough to stop, for example, this mining. Perhaps this is a reason why Rio Tinto is not active in Slovakia, not coming from Slovakia and Australia, when nobody is living. Okay, they can mine, and this I see this as a risico to be dependent on the foreign countries. We cannot do it in Europe.
Maybe on this issue of lithium and Rio Tinto, because so we are quite engaged in Serbia, which is, as Mr. Šefčovič mentioned, is the second largest.
Also in Serbia,
but there is a big problems.
Stop it.
Yeah, I think the president Vučić wants to have a referendum on the mining and so on. So it is. I agree. It is a big issue. But anyway, there are some questions. Do you want to respond to this now?
Very briefly, of course, this is the big issue. This is what I was describing under the public acceptability of the mining projects. And I think it's a little bit the same. I mean, I remember the discussion we had about acceptability of windmills. That there are communities where the people like to have them. Probably more communities where they didn't like to have them. The people usually do not have the problems when they do not see them on the horizon in the sea. And of course, there are different techniques, different approaches which we have to develop if we do not want to be strategically dependent on foreign supplies. And more or less one, I would say, approach which was presented to me, working with the public opinion, was the question that how to make it from NIMBY, not in my neighborhood approach, to PIMBY, please in my neighborhood approach. And the PIMBY is actually based on how you make the community part of the decision, how you make them shareholder, how you make them benefactor of that approach, how you are transparent with them, how you present the guarantees that we are not here to destroy your neighborhood, your landscape, and which take the profit and disappear and leave you with a mess, with no profits, with no new jobs, and with no new benefits. And I think that it's a real change. It's very demanding for, I would say, public officials to convince these communities, because I fully understand that they want to have the guarantees, that they want to have the part in it, and even with all this in place, it's still extremely difficult task. And I think that's only, I would say, the gradual approach which would help us here. Therefore, we're talking about this charter of sustainable mining, the public acceptance work, and developing these approaches which but how to convince the people that we want to do it with them, that it's good for them, that it will bring benefits to their community, create new jobs, bring the new industry, and have really, I would say, the holistic approach. Otherwise, clearly, we would not succeed. And I think, of course, more democratic country you have, more challenging this is. And I agree with the minister that it's a huge challenge, but at the same time we have to face it because I mean today we see how dependent we are on not only the raw materials but what the shortage of the chips is doing to our automotive industry. That we have several major car manufacturers actually halting their production because they do not have the chips. And I think so that's lessons learned that I mean there are certain products or certain materials where we need to be much stronger masters of our destinies, otherwise we will have huge challenge because for all these technologies of the future, as we've been discussing this morning and this afternoon, you actually need these very precious raw materials or technical products which we simply need. So that's a challenge, I totally agree, but I think we have to face it.
Perhaps we could corrupt the people by electricity, which will allow to mine things.
But I like this NIMBY versus PIMBY. I think it's one of the main challenges of democracy of today because I think people in general on the theoretical level, everybody would agree, yes, we want carbon neutrality. But when you have increase of tax on petrol in France and you have yellow vests immediately marching in Paris in the streets, so when these issues become reality for people in their everyday life and the consequences, then obviously this NIMBY becomes very painful. So I think something, but
also, sorry, please, but also I think this discussion in general is not correct because we are promising the people if we will decrease CO2 by 55%, the world will be very nice. But we are not telling them what's the price. For example, we could tell them, okay, you can fly only once a year, or some. We are not telling the people what is the price. We are only promising a nice bird. Or small remark.
Well, we need to get them excited. So, and then the politicians will explain why there are consequences. So, but Marian,
I will try to find a second solution. So maybe also with regards to raw materials, of course, this big problem. But for example, in IPCI projects, is the one goal to find another materials. It means, for example, we are talking about the energy storage. Innovat Energy has the project of to find redox flow batteries, or to find the materials like the water. Iron, so it's most flow batteries. So maybe this is the way. I'm not sure it's the way for EV cars, of course, but for energy storage, maybe it's the way.
Maybe this so because it's also about the question, and Marcus, going to you, this is also a question about new solutions which are environmentally friendly, very nice, but then of course the issue of price and the consequences, as mentioned, for people. There's a question, so slide which says, is it possible to make the combination of renewables and BESS and battery energy system financially attractive, and how? Because now we know that there are these issues, okay, we want renewables, we'll combine with the battery energy storage system, but it obviously increases price for the end user. So how do we make this combination more financially attractive?
Yeah. No, I take this one. But by the way, the headset says battery low. Yeah?
It's a Chinese battery, don't worry.
I'm very grateful for this question because I have the feeling our discussion tends to become a little bit depressive. I mean, I do not want to make the problems and the challenges which are smaller than they are. But isn't it our job to work on the solutions? And I would be much more solution-oriented now. And that question is a good one, actually, because that's a question we are getting day by day by our customers. How can we do our personal energy transition? How can we become more self-reliant, more independent from whatever gas, coal, the overall sources? What can we do? And yes, batteries as a storage system from today's perspective, especially for B2C, for households, is not yet competitive. It's too expensive, to be honest. On the other hand side, if you see the development photovoltaics made over the last 20 years. 20 years ago, that was, you know, I mean, Mr. Geisen maybe and his family could afford that, but normal people usually not, unless it was heavily subsidized and they nevertheless need to have a lot of money. But nowadays, photovoltaics, even here in Middle Europe, is a competitive thing.
Without subsidies.
And an affordable thing. And I'm really confident that we will see a similar price regression when it comes to batteries. I cannot forecast now when exactly is the year where we will have parity towards consumption via the grid. But I think it's getting increasingly competitive, it's getting more affordable. On the other hand side, that was also mentioned, I mean, let's face it, if we want to achieve the CO2 reduction target, there is no way, no other way than also that the production of CO2 emitting plants and sources is getting more expensive, and I mean exactly that was agreed by the European Union, and we have a very good working European CO2 emission certificate trading scheme, and it's going to be year by year more expensive. We have to face that. I'm also as minister, we need to say the truth. That is the truth. CO2 emitting generation is getting more expensive. But that at the same time contributes to the higher competitiveness or the faster competitiveness of CO2-free generation. And again, I believe there's a lot of potential for private households, but a step earlier even for businesses. We get a lot of requests from businesses, from entrepreneurs in Slovakia. What kind of solutions can you offer us to make our heating cooling more efficient? To enable us to produce our own energy via photovoltaics, to provide us with storages. Also, I believe there is a market, there is a development, and especially on the B2B side, a lot of companies, a lot of entrepreneurs are anticipating that and setting priority to their personal energy transition on their entrepreneurial agenda.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? Because I don't want to monopolize the discussion, although we have more questions from Slido, so we have enough. But any question from audience? Okay, we'll give you some time, but some questions to the minister, because they relate more to Slovakia in terms of EV batteries and electromobility. So actually two questions, but they are kind of interrelated. One is there a national strategy for Slovakia to develop a statewide network of EV charging stations? And then the second one is Slovakia is in the neighborhood where countries are competing for electromobility. Poland and Hungary are moving fast with the development of gigafactories, especially in partnership with Asian companies like LG and others. Czech Republic recently announced financing for 2 gigafactories from the budget. What is Slovakia doing, and what is the national strategy for gigafactory for EV mobility?
I start to answer the second question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cannot speak about this. We are in negotiations, and I cannot say with who, because I think it should stay secret until the deal will be not done. So I'm sorry, but we are doing something, and part of this is we are preparing this Vavaliki areal, which will be able to offer a good possibility and good conditions to have a gigafactory. But I'm sorry, more can I not say. And the first question was about the strategy.
For the charging stations, yes.
Yes, so, okay, as you heard from Markus Kaune, we have 2.5 cars per one charging station. So the strategy which we have is very good. Yeah, only 2.5 cars. So we will continue in this, but I think now we will try to install 2 hydrogen. What is it in English? Please help me. Čerpacie stanice.
The fueling
Fueling
station.
Yes.
Fuel.
So we want to make both, not only one, not only electricity, not only hydrogen, but we want to combine this. Today we have enough charging stations, and we have to wait until we will have more cars. And yes, we had also these subsidies for electrical cars. But we are giving the money from taxpayers to people which are rich enough, because the electrical car is much more expensive like a normal car. So poor people are not buying electrical cars because they don't have the money. People who are not rich, right? Not rich like Mr. Geisen, but rich enough. So I don't really, to be honest, I don't think that they need subsidies. I think much more important is, and this is a really important role of the state, is, for example, to prepare the legislation. So now we have this law 2.251, and we are preparing also other laws to be fit for the future. I think this is a task for the government, for the state.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President Šefčovič will have to leave in 5 minutes, so if there are any specific questions related to him, otherwise I will ask him to provide some summary or foresight, whatever we call it. And we appreciate your time. I know we have many other meetings outside of. There is one question, please, Mr. Košovan. Yes, I think we have the. We need microphone.
Last time on German Slovak Chapter, our minister told that we have lack of clean electricity or big deficit of renewable electricity. Ronald Reagan once said about the deficit that is big enough to take care of itself, but I think this question is very, very important for Europe. We completing block, nuclear block. Our Hungarian friends is going to erect nuclear station, but still CO2 free electric energy is not enough. I think there is no real plan to have within 10-20 years this electricity for this plant. We have hydrogen and batteries. So this is my question. If it exists the plan for producing green energy. That's all.
Thank you very much. Easy question to conclude my presence, because I'm actually not leaving the pavilion, but we have to have some important phone calls made right now, and then we have some press.
Hopefully not about
press obligation. Not about.
Not with our UK friends.
Maybe. It's a little bit about that, but not with the UK this afternoon. And I mean, coming to a few concluding remarks, I think that if I would look at the discussions a few years ago, at the time there was like worry that, you know, whatever we do in the electricity sector, that we would not have enough of clean energy. Today we know that if you look at electricity forecast, so by 2030, Mr. Conley would correct me if I get it wrong, but I think our estimate is that around 70% of electricity by then would be, at least 70% would be clean. So it would be coming from renewables, and it would be coming as a low carbon energy from nuclear power. I think you could see also here at Expo that every pavilion was bringing some kind of new technologies on wave energy, wind energy. I mean, the kite technology is coming from Germany. So really, I mean, here we see that there is a lot of innovation coming in. Then I think we also are underestimating a little bit the so-called decentralized power generation. I mean, if you travel across Slovakia today, I mean, you see it more and more that almost every new house which is being built, every new building which is being built, they have big solar panels on the top. They are, I mean, I'm now living in a small village close to Bratislava. Every single household has a heat pump, and so these are the technologies which are, I would say, gradually bringing it in. And I know that this is not the base load what we are discussing, but this is kind of a gradual build-up of how the, let's say, private consumptions, eventually charging of the cars in the garages will be more and more fueled. And I think usually when we are talking about will there be enough energy, so it's public officials who are worried. These are the consumers who are worried, but usually not the power generators, because they like to have more demand for electricity. They like to generate more power, and so far they always found it a good market response how to do that. So I agree with the minister that what we need is to have a future-oriented legislation. We have to be always ready to adapt it, to make sure that it's future-proof, that we are ready to revise it, that we are ready to use, of course, this horizon scanning and foresight, how to make sure that what we put on the table can, let's say, survive the test of new technologies and time. And if not, that we are ready to be very flexible in updating it when necessary. And I think that for our overall discussions here, I would just repeat what I said at the beginning, that clearly we would need all available technologies to get us over this extremely challenging few decades, which are kind of lying between now and be it 2050, or the time when we would like to reach climate neutrality. And I think if you won't be doing it fast enough, we will just see more of a dramatic summers like we have this year, wildfires, floods, ravaging storms, frosty winters, and simply that would be the new normal, which I think we can slow, but it would require a lot of efforts in that regard. And the last comment on Slovakia, I think we are extremely proud that we are #1 car manufacturer per capita in the world. And I think it's also very revealing for our European colleagues, where you actually tell them that if you look at big SUV of European trademark on the road, there is very, very high chance that it was made in Slovakia. So I think we clearly have proven that we are excellent in manufacturing skills, that we can deliver high quality products, and I think that we should use the same effort, the same entrepreneurial attitude, the same forthcoming approach into making sure that we'll be as good as we are in building SUV, that we'll be as strong as building new hydrogen or electric vehicles, that we'll be strong in personal cars, we'll be strong in trucks, in buses, we will test it on the trains, that we will be kind of embracing these technologies for the industry, because we are industrial country. We are one of the 3 most industrial countries in Europe. And simply to stay on that position, because we need it not only for, I would say, the image of our country, but for really generating the GDP. For that, we need that excellence, and we need to embrace all these technologies. And I think we all should do everything we could to use the European money well, to participate in all research programs, to train our people, and to prepare the industry to really face the challenge. But again, if you look what we did since 1993, where we came as a country officially to the existence, who would believe at that time that we would be #1 car producer in the world per capita? Who would believe that? You remember how was it? What was the state of our country at that time? Where we are today. So I think we should have the same attitude that what we accomplished over the last 20 years, we can definitely do even more in the next 20 years, and that would be the attitude I would advocate. And now I really have to apologize because I have to do some more complicated phone calls. That is our discussion right now. So thank you very much. Really looking forward to continue our discussions, and I'm sure that we will have still, as I'm looking at the clock, another 20 minutes of fascinating debate. So thanks a lot, Minister, to colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President. Thank you very much for joining us here, and we hope that the European legislation and regulations will help us to navigate through this difficult energy transition time. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Let's continue. I think actually the clock is a little behind. So we have 10 minutes in fact for discussion to continue or whatever. We are flexible. Yes. Cannot fill 10 minutes. I will not do it. But I did promise to the people on Slido that I will ask those questions that they sent. But there is one question which is relatively technical, but I believe that at least maybe Marcus will be able to answer. This is the question is, when we will have dynamic, or it's a question mark, yes, when we will have dynamic energy distribution tariffs to motivate EV drivers to charge when it's good for the grid, could be easier way to improve flexibility.
Totally agree. When the legislative regulatory framework is ready for that, we will have it.
So you guys are.
And the second element is today we have roughly 20% smart meters installed with our customers. That would be the technical gateway to really enable taking advantage of those kind of dynamic tariffs, and that needs to be ramped up faster. That we need to work on. These are the two things, these are the two elements, but that's a question, from my point of view, of a very overseeable period of time, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years, gradually starting with the higher consuming customers and then going down to every household customer basically.
Perhaps I would like try to answer. We were involved, I think 100% involved in this, it's called Vita package. It's an adoption of a direction coming from European Union. We have to finish this. We will finish this in next 2 or 3 months. And then we have fulfilled one of the big tasks which we have is this election period. And after them, I think next year, spring or summer, we can start to, for example, to prepare the legislation that Marcus Kaune can offer dynamic tariffs to charge the cars. In that time, where is it cheap, for example?
That would be great. Yes, maybe from Slovak Battery Alliance.
I fully agree. So it's like the primary regulation or legislation. So this is the base, and as I understand, the next year will be the year of to make it is like the concrete steps, concrete on the level of distribution, on the regulatory office and so on. But without this approval, this energy law, it's impossible. So I understand, let's do this as the first, and then the next year, and starting from the 1st January 2023, will be in the place, as I understand.
Yeah, hopefully.
We hope.
So, to come on the parliament support. So, any questions? Yeah, please.
Maybe to
I think, yeah, please.
Hello. Maybe a quick question, Minister. There is a lot of topics in the UAE about the green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, gray hydrogen, etc. What is the plan for Slovakia in terms of green hydrogen? Because let's say that should be the future for not only storage of electricity, but and the cars and so on and so on. Maybe to Mr. Kaune, just a simple question: if I would be living in, I don't know, Petržalka, let's say, can I charge a car there? Are the grids in a way ready for something like that? I don't know. Living here for too many years, so not sure what's the situation like that.
Okay. The answer on your question is very easy. Our plan is to get in. This is a part of this taxonomy to get recognized hydrogen, which was produced by electrical energy coming from nuclear plants as green hydrogen. And today there are a lot of colors, but we need that European Commission or European Union says, okay, hydrogen produced by electricity which is coming from nuclear plants is okay, is a low carbon or zero, not zero, but a low carbon source. This is very important. On this we are working also together with Maroš Šefčovič, and we have already a small success. Ursula von der Leyen wrote, I think 1 week ago, on her social network. So, okay, we will need in the future also nuclear power. I am saying this as a minister coming from a country which already is producing 55% of her electricity demand from nuclear plants, and we will increase this part. Mochovce 3, in 2 years Mochovce 4 will go on the net, on the electrical net, and this means we will increase up to 70 or 72%. And so this is crucial for Slovakia. We are not able to replace this energy by solar plants or by windmills. And so, as you see, our big challenge is consisting of an administrative effort, not of a technical or innovation.
Thank you. On the charging stations?
Yeah, now of course you got me. I do not know every precise charging station, but of course I understand there is a principle behind your question.
If I live in a villa, I probably
it's
can
easier, and in a densely populated area, it's more difficult. That's certainly correct. Nevertheless, we also operate public charging stations in those kind of areas, like Petržalka, for instance. Secondly, we try to complement that with ultra-fast charging stations, which we, for instance, in Bratislava have located in one of the biggest shopping centers, where you can really charge with up to 350 kilowatt, which is enormous. Yeah, so your battery is full in half an hour, so far shorter than the shopping exercise will take. But I think going forward, and that is also something at the moment, the new building law in Slovakia is under discussion. I think for all new buildings, we really should be foresightful and provide charging facilities when they are constructed in the underground garages, to make them really future-proof. But to renovate, let's say, existing huge apartment buildings and to provide them with a full charging infrastructure, that I would not promise that we can achieve that, to be very honest. That would probably exceed the potentials of the system, that we need to simply complement them with public charging infrastructure in those areas.
Thank you very much. So I think we actually came to the end of the discussion of the panel. I'd like to thank Richard Sulík, Markus Kalb, and Marian Schmidt for being with us and for having a very interesting discussion. Thank you all for being with us, those who are here, but also those who are watching us. And hopefully we'll see each other at the next panel, which is coming in half an hour. So thank you very much.
Thanks.